Roll call?
Mr. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Acree?
Here.
Ms. Roundtree?
Present.
Chairman Rosie?
Here. So with that, we'll open for invocation this evening. Mr. Jefferson?
Yes, sir. I'd first like to say good afternoon, and tonight I have the pleasure of having with us to provide the invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Ms. Glennis Robinson. And I'll just tell you a couple of things about her. She is a deacon at First Gravel Hill Baptist Church. She married to Mr. Wilbur Robinson, sitting back there with her. She has two lovely sons, and she is employed at Smithfield Foods. Outstanding job. And most of all, she is a very productive, positive citizen of Isle of Wight County. So, it's on you, Ms. Glennis.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, Supervisor Jefferson, and good evening to everyone that's here. I am a lifelong resident of Isle of Wight County, so I'm not a stranger.
All right,
I would ask that as we go before the Lord, that you would bow your heads with me so that we might pray. Lord God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your covering as we travel to and fro, God. We thank you for all that you are in our lives. We ask that you come into this place, for you are welcome in this place, oh God, during this meeting. I ask that you bless every board member, oh God, that you would touch their minds so that they might have the wisdom to lead, touch their hearts so that they have the empathy, oh God, to think of others, and to touch their hearing so that they might hear what your Spirit has to say as they lead the county, oh God. We know that we are nothing without you, and that we need your guidance in order to do that which is your will, and that your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. These and all of the blessings we ask in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glennis.
And thank you very, very much. You all have seen the agenda before us tonight. Do we have any changes, or do we want to have a motion to accept it?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Okay. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Acree?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Rosie?
Yes, approved. And we now move to the County Administrator's Report.
Yes, sir. First up, we have a presentation introduction for Mr. Brandon Rogers. He's our new Executive Director of the Western Tidewater Community Services Board. Brandon is new in his role, but not new to the agency. He's been there 20-some years. So he just started back December 1st or January 1st. It was right around.
Yeah, October 14th, actually. I've almost got 4 months.
That's right. Demetrius retired, and so Brandon, we're very fortunate to have someone in-house, and so he's here to introduce himself. Talk a little bit about Community Service Board, because I'm new to that board. Don has served on the board for a long time, but some people may not be as familiar with it as others are, so thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak tonight. I want to offer my condolences for the passing of Mr. McCarty. He was also a member of our board, and sorry to see him go. He was impactful in the short time that we had with him at Western Tidewater, and so we'll miss his presence. So Randy did a good job of letting you know that I've been here for a little while, but new to this role. Demetrius was our executive director for the last 25 years. And so I figured it was probably a good idea to get out and say hello to the counties and cities that we represent, and make sure that you can see my face and know that you can pester me if you've got questions, concerns, comments, or praise. I'm open to hearing good comments as well, if you have any of those. And wanted to thank Ms. Roundtree for coming to our open house at our new Isle of Wight clinic, which you can actually see up on the screen right now. We moved just down the street a little bit to the Food Lion Plaza in Smithfield, and opened up a new facility. It allowed us to have extra space to actually accommodate more individuals coming in and to do something that I'm really proud of, and we'll talk about as I go through a couple of slides, offering same-day access at that clinic. It was the one counseling center where we did not have open access to walk in and get treatment, and so now we have enough space and ability to accommodate that, and look forward to it. We've been in Isle of Wight County for as long as I've been here, so over 20 years with a site. We do cover the 4 localities out here in Western Tidewater of Franklin, Suffolk, Isle of Wight, and Southampton. And you guys are probably the second largest locality and the second largest utilizers of our services. Mental health can sometimes fly a little bit under the radar. You don't always see it. Certainly developmental needs and developmental services and substance abuse treatment are not always as recognizable as primary health needs and others, but they're every bit as important. And part of the work that I'm very interested in doing is helping us to break down some of the conversation and stigma issues. So I like to give the analogy, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I have an insulin pump. Nobody here would look at me weird for going into my endocrinologist to make sure I got a prescription for insulin and made sure I took care of my diabetes. Depression is every bit as fatal as diabetes is, and making sure that we continue to make sure we have access for individuals that battle mental health needs every day is just as important as primary health. So I'm going to go through and not try to kill you with death by PowerPoint. You're welcome to ask me questions as I roll through. This is really information for all of you. And I'm open to dialogue. It's much better than hearing me drone on about services. And I figured I would also offer an opportunity for you to ask me anything that you think is needed around behavioral health or developmental services in the county. So a couple of programs. We'll touch on same-day access, case management, outpatient, SCIP, and mental health psych, in addition to some of our prevention services. Same-day access is available in our Isle of Wight clinic on Wednesdays. So during that period of time that you see up there, 8:30 to 2 p.m., an individual can walk in off the street and immediately get access to care. They will get an assessment done. They'll be provided with follow-up appointments and kind of some direction on what's the right course of action. As I talk about programs today, folks, when they walk in the door, don't need to know what services they qualify for, what they need to ask for. They just need to know who they are and walk in, and we'll work out a treatment plan with them in accordance with what their needs are. Psychiatric services are the traditional medication management and things like that. We have nursing support that goes along with it. And case management's kind of those directors that make sure all the pieces fit together, primary care, social services and entitlements, making sure that we have the right providers at the right time for the individuals. Outpatient therapy is what you think of when you think about, you used to go in and lay down on the couch and somebody would talk to you about all of the problems from your family, right? But we do this in a lot of different forms now. We have art therapists, we have individuals that work with folks with autism spectrum disorder and other special needs. We have individuals certified in cognitive behavior therapy, with dialectical behavior therapy, EMDR. Some of these analogies or the acronyms might not make a lot of sense, but they're different modalities designed to help meet the needs of any individual that walks through the door. And our school counseling intervention program is working directly with Isle of Wight County Public Schools. We have case managers and outpatient therapists in 4 schools right now. And it's a model that we've been operating in Suffolk for a few years, where we've got a provider located at every school in Suffolk, and we're hoping to expand to more schools. We've had a really good partnership with them, and actually our Isle of Wight clinic director, Justina Lambert, met with them just the other day to talk to all the school counselors and continue some plans for expansion there. So some exciting things about our new Isle of Wight clinic. Not only do we have room for walk-in, but we have a group therapy space, which we never had. My clinic director literally had to leave her desk so that they could do outpatient therapy in her office on days when we were crowded. So we have a large group therapy space and a classroom space there, so we can do community education and training. Talk to you a little bit more about that soon. We have a sensory room. Specifically designed for children with developmental needs. In a sensory room, you walk into and it's got all the cool things you can touch or you can hear, or different colors and that. You can see the picture down in the bottom. It's a lot more inviting space, particularly for a child that's overstimulated. Really good way for a therapist to sit down and kind of get on the child's level. Coffee with a clinician. The last Monday of every month, we have a clinician available that is just there to sit and have conversations about mental health and wellness. 10 to 12, just a community offering that folks can come in and just take advantage of having somebody to talk to. We all have like those friends, right? You have that one nurse friend that you call every time that you've got some kind of weird health condition. That's what Coffee with a Clinician can be. When you've got those questions that pop up, it's a good place to drop in and talk.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You talked briefly about the school intervention program. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we find is families are busy, right? So one of the best ways to engage them is to go to them, because I've got 3 kids, and I know that I run every night of the week. My wife and I are doing something, and we're collaborating and doing a really good job co-parenting, and we're still really busy. And so how do you fit mental health and treatment like that into an already busy schedule when kids are at school all day? And so we provide the services directly at the school. Our case managers and our clinicians will see the children. The outpatient therapists, the therapist level staff are all trained in cognitive behavioral interventions for trauma in schools, which works not just with the kids, but also with the teachers to help them understand why some of the behaviors are going on, thinking about how do you support trauma and help to promote resilience in children. So the model is really designed to make sure that we can go to where people are versus having to have folks come directly to us. Yeah.
You all don't recommend medicating these kids, do you? Or is that part of the program?
So that's all individualized assessment kind of work. So medication is typically for us a secondary service after we've tried other interventions. So we usually go from least restrictive to most restrictive, and medication falls certainly higher than talk therapy and some other behavioral management type of strategies and things like that. All of our doctor services, all of our medical services require that a child's participating, or even an adult is participating in some other kind of treatment like outpatient therapy in order to be seen by one of our psychiatric providers. Yeah. I do okay answering your question?
Yeah, move on.
Okay. All right. Trainings and community impact. So one of the biggest roles I think that CSBs have, and I forgot to mention this earlier, there's 40 of us around the state, right? We're the ones that represent this area, but there's 40 of us throughout the state. We're that public safety net for mental health and developmental services. We get local funding from all of you, so thank you very much for that. You'll see our budget requests come up and all those good things. And there's a state mandate that local funds make up 10% of our budget. A lot of times I get questions about how do you pay for all this stuff, right? We of course bill insurance and Medicaid. We're required to do that. That's about 40% of our budget. We have some state funding, and so that makes up another probably 30 to 40% of our budget, and we get some federal funding. And then the rest is made up through grants and local funds.
So has any of your federal funding been suspended recently?
Yeah, good question. So Randy had to sit through me talking about this the other day. We have about $5 million in federal funds, and 3% of that is currently frozen. And that was a pass-through from the state, specifically targeted to DEI objectives. And that was all community-based DEI work that we had been doing. And so it's about $47,000 right now that's frozen out of that $5 million. Otherwise, we have so far survived unscathed.
Thank you.
Yep. We have a pretty aggressive plan, knowing exactly where everything is and what positions are tied to it, so that if we have to make some changes, if we hear any more, we'll pivot wherever we have to. That community education piece, we offer a number of free trainings, and so I've got those listed here. Mental health first aid is like an 8-hour course, and it's exactly what it sounds like. If you've taken a first aid class through the Red Cross, you learn how to identify issues that you can treat. You learn how to put Band-Aids on, check people for head injuries, all those kind of things. Mental health first aid trains you on how to recognize the signs and symptoms of mental illness, how to respond in a caring and compassionate way, and what local services and supports are available to help someone. Safe Talk is a suicide alertness program. And my favorite one out of this list is ACEs, or Adverse Childhood Experiences Training. And I started off as a school-based clinician. I started off working with kids in schools here. And this one is my favorite because it makes sense and the science backs it up. Essentially, thinking about the way that bad experiences compound to place a child at risk for mental illness later in life, the more times that they have a bad experience in life. And so you have one traumatic event, you have a certain percentage of developing mental illness. You have a second traumatic event that gets compounded and now you're up there. But the single greatest protective factor for any child that experiences one of those traumatic events is a trusted relationship with an adult, which means that every one of you could be the difference between a child developing long-term consequences from an adverse experience or being protected from those consequences because you've intervened and provided good support to a child and made a difference in their life. And that means you don't have to be a counselor to do that. It means that any one of us can do it. And a lot of good information in that training. All those are free. We will come to you. We will do it at our site, and I've got a couple of listings on there. But those are things that even if the board so chose, we could come and provide any of that training directly to you. Also thinking about equipping residents, equipping the individuals in our community with some of these tools and supports. It's really helpful to align with somebody that's in need of services and to have that natural support come alongside them. And so the better caregivers equipped to be able to come and help somebody seek treatment, the better off their outcomes are generally going to be. This is just a slide that has a listing of some of the trainings and their next iteration. You can see that we do mental health first aid for both kids and adults. It's a very similar program, but the youth does really focus down into how you work with the child and their families a little bit more than the adult, looking more obviously at the individual. Revive is about naloxone education and treating opioid overdose. Again, that's a free training. We do that relatively often. Together in Pride is a support group for the LGBTQIA+ community, and that's run virtually 5:30 to 7:30 every Wednesday. We run nurturing parenting programming, and we have a new cohort coming up. That nurturing parenting program builds resilience in a family. It's designed to help parents of young children specifically develop skills to help their kids grow and succeed. Again, an ounce of prevention worth a pound of treatment. It's way easier for me to intervene early than it is for us to try to deal with things the longer they go. It's just like maintenance in your car. And we also have a community coalition. This is a pretty exciting thing. We had just about, I think it was 95 folks come and represent at the last coalition meeting, which was just last Friday. And they're just individuals that have interest in mental health. Some of them are providers in our communities. Some of them are individuals with lived experience or that are in recovery from mental illness. And some are just interested community members that have decided to invest their time. And we spend a couple of hours together and generally talk about the state of mental health and developmental services in our community and what we can do to support one another. And it's pretty awesome to see people with that much passion that they'll give a couple of hours on a Friday just to come and talk with us about the things that we do every day. So the upcoming dates for that are listed there. There's also some sign-up information for all this stuff on our website. We post all of that really for community awareness and making sure that folks know how to get care. That's the end of the slides. I want to ask directly, what are some things that you know are an issue in Isle of Wight, specifically, or elsewhere, that you think we could do a better job at addressing? And I want to be open to that and hearing that, because working on our strategic plan for the next few years, and I want to make sure that kind of input's included.
Commissioners?
So I had a question about, I'll just start with a question, but I think it speaks to the root of my concern here. I have a question. I think when I came to the ribbon cutting, I asked you about services for citizens who are in crisis. Mm-hmm. Could be during the day or after hours, that our sheriff's department comes into contact with. So I'm really interested in that. Of course, we're limited on the number of deputies we have, and often when they run across someone who is medically compromised, having a, mental crisis or a little bit of both, a lot of times that takes our deputies off the roads to protect the other citizens while they work on that issue, right? We
Yep.
talked about this. And so I know we've had other speakers come and speak about overnight care, crisis, care and different things that are available. And you shared with me a few things then that are available. So maybe you could share that with us and just tell us, what the future plans are to assist our law enforcement.
Yeah, and I'll actually say I met with Mr. McCarty not too long ago, and we spoke some about how I think we can do even a better job at this. So right now, we do have a crisis receiving center. It's a 23-hour program. It's open 24 hours a day, but somebody can stay there 23 hours. And they have access to a nurse practitioner, licensed therapist, and nursing and peer support. And that's a voluntary site. So in other words, if a law enforcement officer or anybody else comes into contact with somebody that really needs somewhere to go to get stabilized, they can go there, they can walk in anytime. We will also come pick up. So they don't have to be able to have transportation. The law enforcement officer doesn't have to drive them there. We can come and pick the individual up. We offer transportation 24 hours a day. And they can stay there for up to 23 hours, 24 hours, and receive care. That's for an individual that's voluntary. Oftentimes our law enforcement officers execute an emergency custody order. In other words, they take an individual into custody so they can be evaluated. And in that case, they have to remain with the individual for the duration of the assessment. And if they're going to require hospital care, they often get stuck with them for several days because there's some bed shortage issues in the state that I want to fix, but I don't know that I have the power to fix by myself. So we're working on the little bite-sized pieces we can do in our area. In that case, we have what's called a CIT assessment center, or a CTAC. And that's at the same place as our crisis receiving center. By the way, these services are they're in Suffolk on Godwin Boulevard in the Chuckatuck area. It's not a long drive from the Smithfield area, but it can be a little bit longer drive when you're down in Carsville and in that area. So the officer would be able to transfer custody to an off-duty officer. Now, the problem we've had with this site recently has been the availability of off-duty officers. Law enforcement has suffered in many ways the same way that a lot of us have with workforce and had a hard time staffing, and so their officers are already doing overtime on the road and filling in shifts, just like my counselors are taking overtime and filling in night shifts and evening shifts and all of that. And so one of the proposals that I've been trying to work on, and I hope to get some of our county managers, city managers, and some law enforcement officers together on, is to have dedicated off-duty or dedicated officers that's their job, and staff that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was never funded to be staffed that long. The Department of Behavioral Health does give us about $100,000 a year if we can staff it to help offset those costs, but the localities would need to help with that. I think it would be realized in savings in officer time, to be honest with you, in the overtime that they sit with folks. But they would drop them off at our center, and in addition to those cost savings, the big difference is for individuals. Most of the time, those evaluations happen at an emergency room. I would assume all of you at this stage in life have been to an emergency room at least once. And have you ever left an emergency room feeling more sane? I haven't. And it's because it's loud, it's hectic, it's busy, and there's other people that are really hurting, right? And so at our site, it's a much calmer environment. Our assessment process and our attempts to intervene to stabilize somebody so they don't have to go to a hospital are usually much more successful. Not 100%, nothing's 100%, but usually a lot more successful. And so I think that's an initiative that all of us are going to have to rally around as a way to relieve some of those officers. Virginia's also done some good work with trying to find some special conservators of the peace that can maintain custody while at a hospital and help with transportation. Those are some legislative efforts that are in the works this year, and we're keeping a pretty close eye on.
There's adult services. I think we spoke about
Yep.
pediatric services as well.
Yeah, right now, our crisis receiving center is all adult. We have construction plans that will allow us to serve children and youth and their families. The big barrier at this point is I have to have a secured side, so I have to do some construction before we're allowed to serve children in the same site as adults. I will tell you, we do already operate a children's crisis stabilization unit, so and that's here in Alawite County. It's on Everett's Road, and that site serves kids for about 2 weeks in lieu of a hospital. So it's a place that they can go. It's a house. It's very home set up, so it feels comfortable. It's not like going to a sterile hospital environment. A lot better success. And that same site that has the crisis receiving center, we're building adult crisis stabilization unit beds. So we'll be adding 16 beds there. There's only 10 beds currently open in our entire southeast region right now for adults. There used to be upwards of, I think 36, 12 in 3 different locations. 2 of those closed down during COVID. And so only 1 remains open, and it's only 10 beds at this point. So we'll more than double the number of crisis stay beds, which will make an impact on what people have for care. Good question.
So I have an interest in that, obviously. My second kind of just question and interest area is really in the spirit of Supervisor McCarty, because as you know, I'm sure he talked to you about a lot of counseling that he would do, not just for his parishioners, but also community members, adults, and adolescents. I know as we would chat, he would talk a lot about addiction and vaping specifically. I know that was a big, interest area for him. I didn't see that listed specifically as a program that you offer, but I'm going to make the assumption that you all.
Yeah, and so that usually falls under our outpatient umbrella. There's probably two places actually: outpatient and prevention services. So prevention's more of a is less intensive. It's a trying to prevent it through education and resiliency factors, so that children don't turn to things like vaping and other drugs. And so they do community education work with the kids. They do outreach events and things of that nature. And then when we get into treatment, so if there are some developed substance use issues, our outpatient therapists will work on that. And we have some dedicated substance use outpatient therapists, and we have some individuals that will treat co-occurring disorders, so mental health and substance use.
I also wondered if you've seen an uptick at all in phone calls or requests for family assistance who are undergoing or were formerly undergoing gender-affirming care since the change recently?
I have not seen anything that I can put a finger on data, right? What I can say is that we do hear more situational anxiety concerns are coming up. I think we're getting more questions about that. The other piece I think we've tried to do is to make sure that folks know that our door's still open for things like that. It spoke directly to our staff to make sure that our staff had a lot of fear and anxiety, to be honest with you, about some of those recent executive orders and some of the direction that we've headed. And so trying to let folks know that our treatment stays the same and is generally not politically driven. As I speak to a bunch of elected officials, but our treatment's not politically driven. It is available care for individuals, the service that they need and support that they need to stay healthy, well, and be productive. So.
Another issue, as I know Supervisor Jefferson asked you about schools. Specifically, I know at school there's a huge emphasis on absenteeism. So, just are there any ways that you can think of that you all can support schools and the importance of going to school, being at school, being a part of that community?
Yeah. Some things we've done in other localities has been to develop some strong partnership with any school official that's addressing truancy. So sometimes they call it a truancy officer, sometimes it's just a counselor that has that role, those kinds of things. And so we've partnered directly with those staff so that we can do some family engagement, child and family engagement, to understand the importance of that, to address any underlying needs. Depression is often difficult to recognize in kids, but often a barrier to coming to school. And so sometimes it shows up in a child as anger or indifference or just other symptoms other than the classic depression that we might think of from an adult. And so by trying to get in there and develop those relationships, that's been effective. One of my goals that I've already informed the board of is it's my goal to have a staff and a relationship with every one of our schools in all of our localities. We're not there yet. That's something I want to do in 3 years. And that includes our private schools and hopefully some of the homeschool coalitions as well, to have that contact. I believe that when we are engaging our families, we're hitting multi-generational opportunities. So it's not just the child, but it's multi-generation, and then you have a better window in. Sometimes kids get the bad rap that they're the problem, and a lot of times they're responding to their environment. And once we have that door open, we get an opportunity to work with them.
Finally, I would just say I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Smithfield. And if you haven't been invited already, I'll just invite you to our Mental Health Expo. It's the second annual, April 30th at Smithfield Center. And you may already have been involved in planning for that. You probably remember last year, but 6 to 8 p.m. at the Smithfield Center is the second annual Mental Health Expo, which I think you all would be a primary
We would love to.
attendee.
Yep.
Right. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joel?
I don't really think I have much to add.
Bill? I just had a question or two, and it's more what you're seeing on your ground level, if you will, and especially related to education and what's going on in the schools. And there was a lot of concern coming out of COVID with educational anxiety, if you will, students feeling like they're behind and they can't seem to catch up. And how much involvement you all have had with the schools, involvement, encouraging, helping, coming alongside, and are you seeing any improvement to that? Do we still have a group of students that feel like they're really behind and we need to do more to meet that need?
Good question. Well, let me start by saying I have a nightly meeting that gets set up with one of the central office employees at Isle White County Schools, because my wife works there. And so we get a debrief every single day. I do think that we're still dealing with some effects of COVID. And I'll tell you the one that I think is starting to show up that may be less recognized than that social return to school, and that is the children that are entering school now that were born during COVID. And their first couple of formative years were during COVID, when it was not okay to interact with other people, and we were afraid to interact with people. And we spent more time on iPads earlier on and other electronic devices, and we didn't learn how to socialize, and we didn't learn rules and norms that might have happened in daycare because parents kept children home. And then I think their first school experience is really, really traumatic for everybody involved, the child included. I don't have an answer to that,
Okay.
other than I think we need to spend some time thinking about the why so that we can treat the what.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of that is more opportunities for social interaction, more opportunities for the child to feel comfortable and to transition in. So I think some of that, especially I think it's been seen in some of the early childhood classes. I think things like our sensory room and being able to do some things like play therapy, art therapy, provide some alternative means for kids that can't really tell you what they're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
but can show you sometimes what they're feeling and can be shown a different way to express some of those emotions. So those are things that I know we're trying to invest in, but I will tell you, a good play therapist and art therapist do not necessarily grow on trees. And so recruitment and looking for those folks is one of our, kind of the primary work that our HR does. Yeah.
Very good. The second question I had related to this was, we have a growing senior population who could be potentially an invaluable resource. And so I'm thinking about the training options you have here, and I don't know how far out you go, but I know also you have a lot of folks in local churches that also, you have a compassionate number of people there that would like to be involved. And so any way you can continue to promote and offer the training opportunities, I think would be huge because I think there are some resources that will help you multiply what you're actually doing within the community. And certainly, I think there's an opportunity with some of the seniors as well. So I appreciate that. If we don't have any other questions, thank you very, very much.
Yeah, and just a comment, we go anywhere. So if it's in these 4 localities, our training stuff will go there. And we have found really good partnership. In
And
a lot
those
of the
4
big
localities, say them one more time for everyone.
Isle of Wight, Franklin, Southampton, Suffolk. Yep. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you
I really
very
appreciate
much.
y'all.
The Smithfield intersection.
Yes. Jamie has the pleasure of coming
It's already 10 o'clock.
before 10 p.m. tonight, so
Man, it's already 10 o'clock. Jamie's coming out.
Welcome.
Want to squander my opportunity here.
yeah.
Good day, Amy.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jamie Oliver, Transportation Administrator. This evening, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Smithfield intersection project, introducing it prior to your regular board meeting in the next couple of weeks, when we'll be going through an actual public hearing process on this project. The Transportation Division has opened public comments on the 60% plan set for the Smithfield intersection project, and all of the project documents are available on the county's website for public comment and public review prior to us having that public hearing on the 20th. Since we're here in a more informal setting, I'm going to go ahead and open the county's website and just show you where those documents are for the public to review. And what we've done is set up basically a 30-day window of public comment for people to review it, and the public hearing will be within that 30-day window, so people can comment now, and we can record those comments. They'll also be able to comment at the public hearing and after the public hearing for approximately 10 days. Let's see. I hope I'm doing this right, Don. So we have it listed here, or if you go under departments to transportation, you can click here for more information, and the public notice is here. Or you can actually go to the project page, and it summarizes the project. It has this graphic of the project, which if you click on it, blows up large, and you can zoom in. It does take a few minutes to load. And this will be available at the public hearing for people to review. But you can zoom in and take a close look at it. And you can see from the drawing that what we're doing, based on these blue arrows, is adding a through lane in each direction. And then we'll be reestablishing the right and left turn lane and lengthening the turn lanes. So we'll be adding this new through lane, which you can see in the dark gray. Putting in this right turn lane in the dark gray, and then extending the left turn lane all the way back here.
Basically, we're getting 2 new lanes from what we already have.
Correct. So if you imagine being out there today, you have a through lane, a left turn lane, and a right turn lane. If you're sitting on the Smithfield side, if you're sitting at Little's grocery store, you're sitting at the light, you have a through lane, you have a right turn lane, you have a left turn lane. We're going to be putting the right turn lane will turn into a through lane, so you'll have 2 straight lanes, and then we'll be putting a new right turn lane, and the left turn lane will be lengthened. So you'll have a lot more left turn lane. It'll be almost double. You'll have 2 through lanes, and you'll have a right turn lane.
What is the transition back past Pole Road there in front of Powerhouse?
So basically, it will transition as you come through at Powerhouse. It'll slowly transition past their second driveway. It'll be done. So their first driveway will end up being closed, and it'll transition at their second driveway.
And the entrance to the parking ride lot will also be closed on,
Correct.
Route
The
250.
front entrance to the park and ride lot will be closed, and buses will now enter off of Pole Road. And the circulation in the park and ride lot will be adjusted, and it will be restriped, and we'll be adding spaces over there.
A substantial impact to Powerhouse as far as their frontage.
It will have a significant impact. We'll be closing that, we're proposing to close that front driveway, and it will impact basically what is currently the sidewalk and all of that grass strip in front of them. We've had some preliminary conversations with them, so they are aware of what that is. And of course, we'll be putting a stormwater pond here, doing significant drainage improvements in the area, adding sidewalks, curb and gutter, and pedestrian improvements. So where we are in the process with this is 60% design. So after we have the public hearing, then we would move into actual right-of-way acquisition. So we have actually contacted the majority of the impacted right-of-way property owners and had conversations with them. We cannot enter into any type of actual right-of-way discussion, but we've contacted them, make sure that we've had conversations with them directly, made sure that they are aware of the hearing that's coming up, and made sure that they have personally received copies of this drawing so that they see the impacts, and made sure that they had access to the full plan set that's online. So
I guess engineering determines on what was best as far as going, I guess you call it north and south, I don't see one on there. But going with that option and pulling land from, say, the top end of the slide instead of the lower end of the slide.
correct. So we looked at several alternatives, which would have been splitting it between both, going to the north or going to the south, and there's significant utility impacts going to the south, which is why it was shifted the most to the north.
Makes sense. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Scroll down to look at the pond. One more. So I'm gonna make the assumption, but you know what happens when you do that, but that's where the town of Smithfield raised the homes that were in that area, or no?
It is north of that. So this is Quail Street. So this is actually the parcel that is between the 7-Eleven and the corner at Quail Street across from the pump station. This is the vacant area between that.
Will it be fenced or provide some kind of natural buffer around it?
At this point, we are not proposing to fence it, and I'm not sure that there will be an existing natural buffer around it based on the actual design that we're going to have to use for it to keep it on that size lot.
So will it be then a dry BMP or?
It is proposed at this point to be dry unless it is retaining
Right,
water because of a storm.
right. Okay.
I do think it's important too that it's going to be maintained by VDOT. So we did also actually think that keeping it close to the road so that we could keep an eye on it being maintained could be helpful.
But it should help the draining of just the topography from Champion Swamp and that whole area.
Yes, based on the drainage study that we did for this project, and quite frankly, the one that we did prior to this project, we think that it should significantly improve the situation in that area.
When they did the geos, they didn't find any underground or groundwater in the area.
We have groundwater monitoring wells operating out there right now. So this is at 60% design. This is not at final design.
Okay.
So we do have to finish that design. But there are groundwater monitoring wells on this property to final investigate for this purpose.
I don't know that this is, I'm just really just a question, we're in a work session. So the lot's just south of Quail Street, I'm assuming that's some of that, the FEMA program where, okay. Does federal government allow you to use those for BMP purposes? Or I mean, because obviously you can't construct residences on there. I'm just curious for future
Town of
about that.
Smithfield owns the property.
But the county has some properties like that too.
Uh-huh.
And I guess the question is, does FEMA or does the federal government allow it to be used for BMP type things if if it's an option?
Yeah, you can't use it for structures. You can have it for passive activities like playgrounds. You can have it for BMPs.
Okay. I'm just curious.
And you can have it, I think if I remember correctly, you can have like a picnic shelter as long as it didn't have walls on it, so that if you had a flood, it could just wash through there.
I was just curious, just
You
because
can't-
it's in such close proximity and you brought it up.
Well, and does this back go down past Quail Street?
I don't think this image goes,
Okay.
it doesn't show it that far.
But there are some, the town has, 3 or 4 lots, and we have a lot there on, right below Quail Street. So we have one, or maybe Desire's front on the upper part of Quail Street. We have a lot there, and the town has.
Correct,
3
ours
lots
is
there.
right at the corner.
Ours is right, okay, they're all right there side by side.
That one at the bottom of the street?
Right
Yeah, that
here
one.
is ours.
It's county.
Yeah,
And
that's
then-
right. Because we just had to take a large tree down. There was a large tree that was all entangled in the power lines there, and we just took it down not too long ago.
So, and we did look at that option, and we did start some preliminary conversations with the town about keeping that option open. There's some challenges with that, and one of them would be that we still have to pipe all of the water from this site under these, or under the road to that location to put them in a pond on that site. The other is that this is a natural ravine. If you've ever been behind the first trees there, this is where the water naturally accumulates. That's why it floods at this location, because it naturally accumulates here based on the topography, so.
I'd asked Jamie the exact same question. Why couldn't we just use the lots we
Yeah, the
had?
cheap lots.
But the problem is we have to catch the water before it gets to
That
those
makes
lots.
sense.
So it's
Makes a big
flowing
mess all the way down.
from top of the sheet to the bottom, and so.
I figured they'd already looked at it, but
At 60% design, you probably don't know the full impact of the increased pavement and surface water runoff at this point. Or close.
We have gotten into some pretty significant stormwater design. We don't have all of the answers, but we do feel like we have done some pretty significant design, because there are a lot of challenges on the town of Smithfield side. So we've gone pretty far into the stormwater design work, and that's why I've gone ahead and gone back to this page, because as you look through, we've posted the full 60% design plan set here. So if you were to go into the plan, you would see the full drainage documents that we've already completed in here. That you would see the 30% drainage narrative in here. You would see the cross sections in here for all of our previous drainage work in here. The other thing I would say is that our complete NEPA documentation, all of our environmental documentation that's gone through all of the agencies, is posted on here for at least 30 days for public review.
That pond would help relieve that area of that flooding that took place some time back.
Yes,
Oh.
we anticipate that it would. I don't want to say we guarantee, just because you never know what Mother Nature's going to throw at us,
Right.
the type of storms that we have. But we do anticipate that so far, everything we've seen, we would expect that it would.
Pole Road, right there beside the parking lot, that's gonna be paved, you all gonna pave that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and that is a public road.
It's a good idea that they closed that side entrance off, because to me, that was a safety hazard, trying to get out in traffic.
Yes, I think that will relieve quite a bit of congestion. So, and also this section right here in the front will become a bioretention feature, so that will be a stormwater feature. And there'll be additional stormwater features at the back here as well. So there's quite a bit of drainage. You can see additional drainage features throughout this parking lot. There's quite a bit of additional drainage work throughout the project area.
Are those EV charging stations I see?
We are exploring the charging stations. It turns out that there's quite a bit of infrastructure complications involved in that. But we are exploring the idea of having 1 or 2 installed.
so the crosswalks for this, there's only one crosswalk, or is there?
So the proposal for crosswalks at this time are that we would put push-button pedestrian signals going parallel on 258. We have already received some public comments requesting that we put them perpendicular as well. At this time, we're not proposing to put them perpendicular for two reasons. One is that operationally, we've seen that it significantly impacts the function of the light, that if you push them and stop because of the delay for people to cross that way. And two, we're not convinced that that would be the safest place if people wanted to cross. We think that we should maybe explore the idea of pushing them further into town to cross or further up towards the school to cross because of how big that intersection is becoming at this time, that the perpendicular crossing might be better located at a different place. But we are putting the pedestrian crossing parallel.
And also, if you go back towards town, so the one, can you explain the coordination with the Grange project and their most recent change there?
Yes, so we are coordinating directly with the Grange team. We've had several meetings directly with their engineering team. These illustrative drawings come directly from their project team that they've been sharing back and forth with our engineer. So this is actually their proposed relocation of Grace Street that would come into Main Street. This is where it would be located at. And this is generally survey accurate to where it would come out. This is the Schoolhouse Museum, and this is Grace Street. Based on our current design, this is where our turn lanes would taper off, and this is where their turn lane for turning left onto their relocated Grace Street would start immediately at the end of our project. So our turn lane would taper out, and their turn lane to turn left would start immediately at the end of our project area. In front of the Schoolhouse Museum. Now, I think it's important to note that this drawing is based on there being no right-in, right-out driveway for the hotel. In the concept that was just unveiled recently at the town meeting, the team had made a revision which said that there was no need for a right-in, right-out driveway to serve the hotel. And that is a significant modification.
That is.
If there is a right-in, right-out driveway required for that hotel, it has a significant impact on the length of the turn lanes for the intersection. If there is a right-in, right-out driveway here, then it requires that these tapers be moved up more than 100 feet. So it shortens the left turn lane by 50%. And it would cap the ultimate capacity for future expansion of that intersection at that driveway.
But according to the new proposal, they've vacated that.
Correct. So this design is based on the idea that there is no right-in, right-out driveway.
So the only access would be either Grange Street or the right-in, right-out off of 10 if they get that, correct?
Correct. So this still has, the access allowance for Grange Street or for Grace Street, because at this point, we don't know what their construction schedule is. So this allows for either of them. So, and if they wanted the right-in, right-out for the hotel, this of course does not preclude them from coming back and requesting an access waiver from VDOT at that time. So, but just to go back for a minute too, I do think it's important just to point out the environmental documentations. We did see a few public comments. We've already run at least one advertisement in the newspaper. It was picked up on social media, which, while not always particularly constructive to the design conversation, I think is important to note that we are definitely reaching the public so that they are aware of the project. And there were some comments about making sure that they had time to review the documentation and some concerns about our historic resources. So I would like to point out that these documents are all available on our website for public review, including assessment of all of the historic resources within the project area and DHR's review of all of our documentation, hazmat, air resources, all of the sensitive waters, threatened and endangered species. It's actually like 465 pages. All of the right-of-way documentation, all of those things are available for review, including all of the agency comments that we received.
No spotted bats or anything?
We have to, there's no habitat that's endangered by the activities of the project, but there are, things within the project area. There's also coordination with the federal tribes. We had to write letters and wait for responses from all of them. So all of those things are available. So.
We've been keeping Smithfield informed of the project as well, so they've been involved in it, commenting and review of the design, whole process.
Yes, and people can submit their comments from the website and it emails it to us. We'll be creating a log of all the comments that are received either at the public hearing, through the website, or through social media. And Federal Highways requires that we respond to each comment and provide a log of all of the comments and all of the responses as part of our package before we're allowed to move into right-of-way acquisition.
You didn't run into any issues at all? What kind of timeline for completion? You may have covered that already.
So far, we are on schedule. We're looking at construction around between December and, I want to say March of 20, I can't read that from here, 27? And then construction should be complete in 28.
Any other
That's it.
questions?
Didn't have a glass.
Thank you.
28.
Thank you.
Excellent update.
28 seems like a long time.
Donald?
It's only 3 years. It's only 3 years.
Chairman, while Don's coming up talking about legislative, I have one item that I should have mentioned earlier. I just want to give the board a brief update about some issues with the Windsor vacuum system, sewer system. If we can add that to the agenda after Don does the legislative agenda.
Okay.
So I will be brief, but I did want to follow up just because we've hit the midway point of this year's General Assembly session. And as with most sessions, there have been some successes and some things that we're still working on. This season or this year is not any different. Like I said, we just passed crossover. So those bills that were in the House of Delegates have now gone over to the Senate, and those bills that were in the Senate have now gone over to the House of Delegates. And they're working on those and simultaneously working on the budget. So this is a really busy season for the General Assembly. As I will say each time, just as a reminder more to the public than you all, because you know this, but this is your top priority relative to legislative items in Richmond. And I am happy to report that Senate Bill 1307 did pass the Senate. So it will now be heard by the House. As you will recall, this legislation was approved by both the House and Senate. In last year's session, the governor chose to veto the legislation. So we're hopeful that it will likewise this year pass both the Senate as well as the House. It's already passed the Senate and House, and that perhaps the governor will either have a change of heart or there will be enough legislative support to override the veto. But again, we're feeling pretty good right now in terms of where we are with regard to the sales and use tax for school construction. Additionally, as you are aware, and this was much to his credit, one of the things that Mr. McCarty had spent a lot of time working on, a lot of work within the region in getting support. And I will say this, surprisingly, it passed the House of delegates. And I'll say that because there's nothing that anybody's trying to hide about this, because it's a good piece of legislation, but this does create an additional tax. It is the remainder of the 1%. Right now there's 0.7% that's assessed on retail sales and use. This would make that a full penny, but that 0.3% would be significant as it relates to primary road construction in Hampton roads. And this legislation is specific to Hampton roads. So again, we're fortunate it passed the House. We're hopeful that it will pass the Senate. But likewise, I think the challenge is going to be the governor signing off on it. And hopefully there's enough support, because it is specific to this region, that we may be able to have some real opportunities moving forward for transportation improvements.
One thing they talked about at the TPO meeting the other day, this would double the amount of funding for smart scale projects in Hampton roads and cut the amount of time to get those funds in half. So double the amount of money and cut our time period in half to receive those funds. So
Yeah, and as you know, obviously, we continue to look at growth along the Route 17 corridor, and Suffolk's looking at growth along the Route 17 corridor. That that area of highway is going to be extremely important, not just to our two localities. Quite frankly, it's going to be extremely important to the region. So, again, we're hopeful that we'll have some success with this.
And this specifically would fund projects along Route 17, 258, 58, 460 is for those primary and secondary roads that don't qualify for the HR TAC funds, which are the big infrastructure projects on the interstate highways. So
Allow us to move some things up on the priority list.
Absolutely. One of the other major issues that we've been discussing with our legislators, and Mr. Keaton and Mr. Jefferson and I went around and met with legislators the other week. We were in Richmond and tried to at least make our case, because as you well know, the tax exemption that was given to the spouses of disabled, or in some instances deceased military, those exemptions add up in communities that have a large military population, Isle of Wight being one of them. And so we were hopeful that there might be some relief. Unfortunately, this legislation did not make it out of the Senate. So I've got this language that they use, PBI'd, just means it was passed by indefinitely, or laid on the table indefinitely. Just means it died. It's their kind way of killing legislation. But this bill did not make it out of the Senate, so hopefully there will be some other either legislation. There was also a budget amendment tied to this, so that's probably not going to happen as well, but there's still hope for that. But at any rate, this may be something that we'll have to continue to work on in the future. I did also want to point out that there were a few bills that would have provided some additional support for education with regard to the standards of quality. Right now, the bills that were in place did not pass. So we're not sure if there will be any success in those arenas. But we are glad that there has been some success in protecting local authority relative to land use. It looks like most of the bills that were protecting that authority are still going through the General Assembly, and the bills that were impacting or threatening that authority have been defeated.
That was gonna be my question.
There were quite a few bills that would have essentially taken the local authority relative to like solar projects and some other energy projects away from communities and given that authority to a state agency that would have been created. Those bills failed. So.
Great.
And with that, if you've got any questions, we'll be glad to try to address those. But otherwise, for the next 2 weeks, there's going to be quite a bit of activity in Richmond, and hopefully we'll see some more success.
I know you went on the 23rd to
Excuse me?
Richmond. What day was the vacant legislative day? Was that, or was that the 30th?
That was the 23rd.
23rd, yeah. So will you go up again in the next 2 weeks, or?
Probably. In most of that, I say most, that'll more likely hinge on when the specific bills come before subcommittees. So like SB 1307, now that it's gone to the House side, we'll be following the local government committees over there, and same with the Senate. And then there's 1 or 2 bills that'll end up in finance. I think the bill that provides for the highway construction, I think that's actually in Senate Finance now, so.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Don.
Sure, thank you.
So this is a late breaking information. Don and I had a briefing with UVA and Dave Forsyth, Utility Department on Tuesday. And this was a follow-up. Last month we had talked about this. It's more of a longer-term project, but we've since developed some issues with the Windsor vacuum sewer system. I just want to give you a little bit of context before we start. So we have the station, and there are 4 legs that run off of the pump station or the vacuum system in different parts of town. And so each leg has its own pump, and it comes into the system. I'll take it back. It's a manifold system, so there are 4 pumps, but they all pumped at the same time and pull from all 4 legs. Tony's in the back. If I say anything out the way, step in and help me out, Tony. He's more familiar with this project. It's very unusual. There's not a lot of vacuum systems around. It's typically in an area where it's very flat, and you can't bury the sewer lines deep like you normally would. In this case, we have a vacuum system, but we have some really deep lines. Some of them are 7 to 10 feet deep. So the problem we have, and let me go back and talk about a little bit how it works. So in each of these cases, you have a number of, they call them pots, and it's just a small tank that 3 or 4 houses drain into one pot, and then this pot has a pump, and it pulls the sewer out of those pots back to the main plant, and then it goes through the plant, and it's eventually pumped into the HRSD sewer line that runs out of town down 460. So you have all these little pots. There are 290 customers on the system, including the high school. So that's important to remember. We have a leak in one of the legs. They're still trying to find that. They think it is under a line where our pressure has been dropping over the last few days, and they think it is maybe something has rubbed a hole in one of the lines. If it were on top, we'd see a sinkhole by now, but we can't find it right now. Here's the problem. This system, when it was built, was not designed, there's no cutoff valve to isolate a leg. All 4 legs come into the plant, and there's no way to isolate one leg while the other ones continue to work. So this email that we received today from UVA was just kind of following up on our conversation with Don. And while we had this conversation on Tuesday, William Saunders happened to be here for another matter, so we pulled him into the meeting to give him a heads up about it so that the town was aware of it. So what we need to do is, on the outside of the building, we're going to have to excavate around these 4 lines that come into the building and put in valves. You know, basically cut the line, put in valves. Well, if you can imagine, cutting a vacuum system means you have to shut the whole system down. It's not a matter of, you know, there's no valve to turn it off, so we've got to put valves in. It wasn't designed that way to be done. There are some valves inside the plant that we also need to work on, but there's no room in there to add this other cutoff valve. So this email gives a little more detail of what we talked about on Tuesday. They're working with we have a contractor that does our indefinite services work, and so we're working with them. They've got to excavate on the outside of the building. Like I say, it's going to be 10 to 12 feet deep trench, and then we're going to cut in these 8 to 10 inch gate valves on these lines that come in. And then since the vacuum pumps have been running continuously over the last few days because of this leak, we're trying to find some pumps just in case one of these pumps goes out, because that would be disastrous as well. We're still looking for the leak. We don't know exactly where it is, but they're walking the lines and just trying to find any place they can either hear or maybe see some indentation in the soil to see where it might possibly be. So, long story short, when we shut the system down, that means we're going to have vacuum trucks that go around and service each one of the pots on a regular basis. So this will be a daily activity until we can get these. So we're trying to get everything prepped so we won't have to be down any more days than we have to. But this is going to be a round-the-clock continuous process, and we'll, get some information out to the customers to let them know to, maybe restrict their water usage during that time period to try to reduce the amount of, what's that?
Use the bathroom at work if they come on.
As long as it's not on one of our vacuum lines.
Yeah.
So this is an unusual situation. This system was put in back in I think Don said the late 90s, and the design could have been better. It was no way to turn the system off. So UVA and staff have come up with a good plan, I believe, but there is going to be some pain involved while we go through this process, but ultimately it will be a much better system once we get it in place. The long-term solution, I think, would be to transition off of this vacuum system and have more traditional pump stations where we can have them, because this system is just not very sustainable. It's not a good design for the number of customers we have. UVA was familiar with these systems in places where you might have, it works well in an area where you have maybe second homes, rental homes, where it's not continuous use, so it's not used all the time. It works in smaller situations, but not the number of customers we have on the system. And certainly not when you have commercial or industrial facilities like a high school or some of the businesses that might be on there.
How did the county get into that business in the town instead of the town getting in the business?
I looked to our historian.
Any idea?
I don't know all the conversations that occurred back during that time. I believe that, I think it was maybe our utilities director at that time had some familiarity with that type of system and recommended that for the Windsor area, because it's, even at, 290 some odd connections, it's still relatively.
Somebody else with some historical knowledge. He was around.
He was around,
I actually went to court over it. No, I'm kidding. When I first got in 2000, the town was having problems with the septic. That's why the vacuum system was in place. At the time, it was state of the art. Airvac was the main person throughout the country that did these systems. The problem is, it's not an airvac system. It's a partial airvac design. That's what he was talking about. It could have been designed better. So the reason why they got into it, the town could not do the job. The county stepped up and done the vacuum system for the town. That's how we got in the sewer business within the town of Windsor. And they stayed in the water business. So that's the bottom line.
We thought there'd been an agreement at some point in time it conveyed to the town.
You would think.
Now
But,
would be a good time.
Well, or last year this time, maybe.
but like I said, now we've transferred to individual pump stations on other projects because pretty much that vacuum system is built out. You know, maybe
Yeah,
a
that's
few
been
spots
an
left.
issue for a long time.
Are the town sewer lines still there? Just,
They were septic. They were on septic one time. So instead of transitioning to a conventional, sewer station, they went to a vacuum because that was the going thing back in 2000. York County has a lot of them. Virginia Beach, of course. They have a lot of vacuum stations too.
so what's the current impact on citizens and what'll be the impact if we have to shut it down?
Now that I don't know. If they go around and have to, pump the stations, but I didn't know if they could set up individual stations. Did you talk about that? Cutting lines and putting in individual.
Well, that would be
skid
more
mounts.
long-term. This is just for this to accomplish these repairs and add these valves in, it's gonna have to be a pump and haul system for this short term. And it could be down 2 weeks while we do this.
Are
Depends
they
on the,
experiencing an impact now?
not right now.
Your pumps are running all the time,
Yeah,
probably burning them up.
the pumps are under stress right now, so, I mean, this literally happened just in the last few days, so.
So have we talked to the town, the council, the mayor, et cetera, or even put out a notice to the citizens yet? Not that I want to cause alarm, but if they know that right now we're having an issue and there are things that they can help us do.
I mean, we pulled the town manager in Tuesday when we were having the conversation with Uva. So this is, like I say, this is just the last couple of days. We're trying to come up with this game plan for the repair, and then we'll be getting that information out to the citizens through the town. So we'll be relying on the town to help us get the information out. But yes, we will need everybody's help to try to minimize the water usage, because we're gonna have to line up, several vacuum trucks to, because they literally have to go around. I mean, you basically take the lid off, suction that amount, go to a next pot, do the same thing.
There were how many?
290
I'm
services. I don't know if that means pots. I think, Tony, is that?
Right, 4 per pot?
Normally 3 or 4 per pot.
Yeah, so it's 290, I think,
Still.
residences, but you divide that by 3 or 4, so it's probably still around 100 or so pots.
Yeah, so I'm thinking back to when we had a water failure in Days Point, and we had to, I know it's different, right? But then the citizens were asking, you have these emergency outreach, automated outreach kind of systems. They really wanted updates. I think citizens do want to help, and information is power, and I think they can help us. They're our customers. They're town of Windsor residents, but they are our customers. I would think sooner than later, maybe we could use one of our emergency management outreach systems or something. 290 is not that many to put on a listserv and just, implore their assistance.
Oh, absolutely. And this is an evolving situation, so we're trying to get more information, because when we met with Uva on Tuesday, he was in the process of working with our contractor to find out what their schedule could be, trying to line up the pump stations. So once we get a better time frame, yes, we will be reaching out to the citizens to let them know what the status is and what we'll be doing. So they'll see trucks running around the neighborhoods on a regular basis.
Very interesting. There's a lot of questions in my own mind. Could they do a loop bypass system, or only take down a couple of legs at a time?
We can't isolate them because they all come into one manifold. So you have all 4 lines come into a central manifold inside the station, and there's no way to isolate. That's exactly what we will be able to do once we put these valves in. We'll be able to isolate a leg, but right now we can't isolate them. So it's either all on or all off.
we don't know exactly what leg is actually has the leak.
Correct. Once we put the valves in, then we'll be able to determine which leg, and we can isolate a leg and see where the pressures are. But right now, I mean, literally, they're having to walk the system just to try to see where it might be, occurring.
Have you talked to the schools at all?
No, we have not talked to them yet. No. We're, as soon as we get more information, then we'll be contacting all the customers. I mean, right now, the system is still functioning, but we're, and then with a vacuum system too, you have more infiltration from the groundwater because you're pulling a pressure on it, negative pressure, so it tends to have more, you're dewatering. And that's what's happening with this leak. We're pulling in groundwater because if there's a hole somewhere, we're literally sucking in groundwater, and that's why the pumps are running longer.
Yeah, again, just my last comment would be the sooner the better, right? Even if
absolutely.
it's tomorrow, to make notices and, again, employ the citizenry to help us with the issue because, like Mr. Acree said, go to the bathroom at work. I don't know what all the suggestions are to help, but it would seem to decrease the volume. I mean, again, I'm no engineer, but to decrease the volume may assist with the overactive pumps.
Yeah, we'll be utilizing all the techniques. I think hopefully we'll have a better idea of the timeline in the next couple of days as they're working with our contractor right now. Part of it is also finding the materials for these pumps are they're older pumps and trying to find something that is compatible. And I understand based on the conversation, our staff they've seen some things that were maybe modified during the design or construction so that it's not exactly what was planned to be built. And I think Tony kind of alluded to that, that if it was done the way it should have been done, it would have been a little more standard system. But there's things about our system that are unique that probably were done to cut costs maybe at the time.
Is that documented anywhere?
Not very well. I think the as-built drawings are not very accurate that we have.
So we have any legal recourse against the contractor that?
Not after 25 years. So just wanted to make you aware as soon as possible. I'll forward you this email electronically so you can have that. But this is the updated information for today.
Okay, thank you, Randy. With that,
Good news there.
we have Mr. Attorney, if you would introduce our next item.
Yes, sir. And before I do that, I just want to give just one brief update that for your meeting on the 20th, it will be just an informational item, but because of the scheduling for closing the books on personal property, we started last year having to adopt a tax rate, the personal property tax rate, out of our normal sequence. That we will be bringing the information to you next meeting with the idea that the public hearing for the personal property tax rate would be done at your March meeting. But the preliminary numbers that Mr. Gwaltney gave me would be that there would be no change in either the rate, which is the board's ultimate prerogative, but also that the car tax relief would remain the same as it was last year, which is 33%. So from his standpoint, there would be no change. But I just wanted to let you know that will be coming because it's out of your normal budget cycle. And so the item that is on the agenda is coming back to the requirements for filling a vacancy in the board. I would like to go back over and kind of give you a brief redo of what we discussed last week, only because I know I was having a difficult time hearing, and I know that y'all were having a difficult time hearing, which means the general public didn't have an opportunity to hear what I was saying, especially with it being a special meeting. But anyway, under Virginia code, when a vacancy occurs on the board has several responsibilities, and that is, one, you're required to petition the court within 15 days of the vacancy to request that the court set a date for a special election. You can have it set, and what you acknowledged and made a motion and adopted last week was that there would be a special election held on the date of the next general election, which is November 4th. The board's options are you can set an earlier date if that's your prerogative, but then you run into the issues that you cannot set it on the date of a primary election, and you have to be 55 days prior to that date, or if you want to do it between the primary and the general election, it has to be 55 days prior to November, so you end up with an orphan date. In fact, with the primary election, you'd have almost no time for somebody to qualify for that election at this point. I mean, you'd be looking at an April date for an election. But anyway, the board moved that you would do that, that you would petition the court for a special election to fill the term for the remainder of the balance of Mr. McCarty's term at the November general election. I have prepared a more formal resolution that states the same thing that I would ask that you adopt tonight to include in my petition that I will file tomorrow with the court. Our circuit court clerk is here because she wanted to make sure that we were going to get this to her judge as soon as possible, and I've talked with her about that. But that would be done tomorrow. So that is one item. The second,
Can I ask a question about, would the person take office after the election or January 1st?
for the special election, they take office upon receiving whoever wins the election upon qualification would take their seat immediately.
Okay.
Because it is an open seat. It's not, it's not expiring December 31st. So yes, they would take their seat upon qualification after the certification of the election. The other requirement for the board, if the board chooses to do so, is filling the vacancy in the interim between now and the date of the election. In order to do that, the only specific requirements under the code are that you're required to hold a public meeting, and that just means a properly noticed meeting where the public can attend, where you would name and potentially discuss potential candidate or candidates for that vacancy to be filled, and then no earlier than 7 days after that, you could then hold a vote to appoint that person. So the discussion was that you would set a date, call a special meeting for sometime next week, Wednesday or Thursday, to hold the public meeting to discuss potential candidates. And at that meeting, if there are any information that the board has gathered from those candidates, make that available, but you're not required to have any specific mechanism to have a resume or application. But if you have such information, you make it available. And then following that, it would just be set on your next meeting on the 20th for action if the board chooses to.
I think we covered this the other night. The appointee or the person that's under consideration has to reside in that electoral district.
Correct. It would have to reside in be a qualified voter in District 2.
What's the latest date that person could take the seat?
The latest date the person could take the seat?
Yeah, let's say we have the public meeting next Thursday, and then we make the appointment on the 20th.
If they were appointed on the 20th, they could then take the necessary steps to go to the clerk and take their oath, fill out their required disclosure of economic interest, and the other steps that anyone that wins the election would have to take, but then they would be able to, as soon as they had taken those steps, they could sit
And then the
thereafter.
first meeting that they would potentially be at is March 6th.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, they should be able to attend, if they're appointed on the 20th, they should be they should be able to take all the necessary arrangements to be at your next regular scheduled work session.
And then we'd be in compliance with the 45-day requirement.
Oh, yeah, so your 45-day,
So March 11th?
no, the March, let's see, yes, March 11th.
So they have to take office by March.
No,
11th.
that you have to make the appointment
Have to
within
make the
45
appointment.
days.
So if we
That
didn't
is-
do it on the 20th, we could do it on the 6th.
You could still do it on the 6th.
So if a board, not this board, but another board somewhere else was faced with this, if for whatever reason they weren't able to make the appointment, they chose not to make the appointment or any number of reasons, what happens then?
Then the code allows that the circuit court can make the appointment if it chooses to. In the little bit of research that I did in the cases where the board did not make a decision, it appeared that most of the time the circuit court did not step in to make an appointment of someone that the only time the court really came to step in was if the board could not make a determination because for whatever reason you're 2-2 and you end up with a tie.
Right.
And you're trying, but if the board chose not to make an appointment or failed to make an appointment, the circuit court didn't come in and then just select a citizen typically, is what it looks like.
So it just stayed vacant after
It
that?
just stayed vacant until the election.
Wow.
Because if you don't make the appointment in that 45-day period, you lose the right to do that.
Gotcha. So, I mean, because it's a
You can't
learning
do it
opportunity.
50 days later. You're
So, here's another question, just for the sake of the conversation and learning opportunity. So, since everybody's been on this board, we've talked about FOIA, we've talked about meetings, et cetera, so on, and that the three of us can't get together and discuss the project, if you will. We don't do that anyway, but we've been reminded, whether it's a project, whether it's conversation that was probably didn't mean to be anything, but the fact that three of you get together, it makes a meeting. Now that we have a vacancy, what does that look like? Is it still three?
It's still 3,
Awesome.
because that is a majority for this board.
I got you. I just was curious if it altered at all when there was a vacancy. Not so much for this board, because I mean, I'm fortunate to work with this wonderful group of people, but another board that people have concerns about maybe, that you ended up with two people doing stuff that they probably shouldn't do or what have you.
No, it is
Taking
still-
advantage of it, I guess you'd say.
If on a specific board, 2 is a majority, then it does reduce to 2. But in this case, the majority is still
Gotcha.
3.
Well, that's just kind of neat to know.
Good.
Wow. Was hoping we never learned this stuff.
But your quorum never changed. I mean,
No,
you still got to have 3 for a quorum, so
Right.
3 is the majority.
So when it comes to the votes, if you will, you have to pass it by 3 still,
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
And if we're split on something, it just doesn't carry.
It just does not carry, correct. And I told Mr.
We
Keaton.
kind of knew that, but I just thought it was an
I
opportunity.
heard on the radio this morning, I believe it was Missouri, they don't have FOIA. They have no open government rules. I think it was Missouri at all.
Wow.
So that's the extreme opposite of where some states are.
It makes it very challenging when you cannot, in one sense, on something like this, get together as a group and discuss it a little bit more. But, so we have to have a little more homework in terms of digging and make a decision. I think the other side of it is we want to make the best decision we can. We also know that we want to do it within the district, so certainly raising up someone within the district that understands the needs of their community and, has a good understanding of the board and the issues and things before us. It's quite a task to find individuals that would be willing to serve and take on something midstream like that and in a very difficult time too. So we definitely have quite the task in front of us.
At the last meeting, we discussed that aspect of it alongside of the consideration that with Will being elected, that as best as we could, we were going to try to find someone that was aligned with, because his constituents put him there, that were aligned with Will best he could, because that would align with what his constituents wanted. I don't know if that's going to probably be more challenging than anybody ever thought, but we'll just do our very best.
I did note in front of us, we have the list of Supervisor McCarty's appointees from District 2. Thank you to our clerk for getting us that. These are all people that he's appointed. Not all of them actually live in his district, but
Right.
We say his constituents put him here, well, we understand that, but his constituents were not the only people on this list. So you also got other qualified people
Oh, no doubt.
that might want to apply for the job.
yeah, I just
Anything?
thought that it was a good starting point. Did we get any applications, or you were gonna get us the talent bank?
So we have not received any specific to the board vacancy. We've gotten, and we can certainly have those available to you. I can send them to you tomorrow, but we've had a few people in the last few days send in applications relative to the planning commission vacancy.
For District 2?
For District 2. And I'll have to verify the addresses because they noted that, but I need to just verify that they are indeed in District 2, but yes.
Is that something you could look up for us tonight? I mean,
Which
is that in
part?
your email?
Which part?
The people who had sent in interest for planning commission?
Yes, yeah, it'll
Thank you.
take all of 5 minutes. Verifying the addresses might take a couple minutes more, but yeah.
Wow.
So for this, and the other aspect is the next item on your agenda is a closed session to discuss potential candidates as well as the county administrator position, and then it's my evaluation.
Because we don't have enough going on.
Yeah, but before that, and is, one, I would ask that the board consider adopting the resolution regarding the setting of the special election on the November date.
So moved.
Any further discussion? Madam?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes,
Mr. Acree?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Yes.
Chairman Rosie?
Yes, so moved.
And the other is the setting of a date to hold the public meeting to discuss candidates, and you may want to do that after the closed meeting.
Let's do
depending
that.
on-
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
sure we
that'll
know
probably
that
be
yet.
To know where you want to go with that, but that, we can do that.
With that, could you,
Yes.
do this to a close?
So, Mr. Chairman, you will need a motion to move to closed session pursuant to Section 2.2, 3711A of the Code of Virginia, to move to closed session for the limited purpose of a discussion regarding the appointment of an interim appointee to the Board of Supervisors, as well as the position of county administrator and the performance of the county attorney pursuant to subsection 1, and 2, consultation with legal counsel employed by the board regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, namely the law and process of filling a vacancy on the board pursuant to subsection 8.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion?
I made a motion.
Do we have any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Jefferson?
yes.
Mr. Acree?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Rosie?
Yes, so moved.
Mr. Chairman, you need a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Acree?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Rosie?
Yes, so moved.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Section 2.23712 of the Code of Virginia, a motion certifying that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only such public business matters as identified in the motion to move to closed session were heard, discussed, or considered.
So moved. And clerk.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Acree?
Yes.
Ms. Roundtree?
Yes.
Chairman Rosie?
Yes, so moved.
And Mr. Chairman, just for a purpose of clarity, before we had gone to closed session, we had discussed the potential of setting a meeting date next week. And it appears that there's no need to do that, so the next meeting of this body will be your regular scheduled meeting on February 20th.
Thank you.
Looking forward to that.
Yes, sir.
Just want to let you know, I'll be out of the office next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, probably half a day on Thursday because our flight, we're going out west for a few days skiing. Then my flight's coming in late on Wednesday night, so I'll probably be a half a day on Thursday. But and I probably will not be available by phone this
I don't
time.
blame you.
Okay.
We're flying out Saturday.
Any other issues for
I'm
board?
guessing Don's in town.
Yes.
Any other thoughts for the evening?
Just,
Yeah, we coordinated.
just as a moment, I was late in the evening, or not that late, but still, with Will. It was obviously a shock to everybody, and we don't really want to go back through that. But y'all gotta admit, it's pretty amazing, the backgrounds that we come from, that we have that diversity, if you will, but also have something in common. And we all knew that to some degree when he was here all the time, but now that he's not here, I think it's even more evident that we have more in common than we really thought. We all didn't agree with Will on things, but that's was our jobs, is to take care of our citizens the way we felt fit. And then we never have imposed that on each other. We've been very respectful of the fact we don't see eye to eye. But it was pretty amazing. And you get in this position, I got in it because, quite honestly, I was upset with a board that didn't listen to me as a volunteer, along with a group of other volunteers. One would say that's water under the bridge, and I guess it is, but it got me here for a reason. I ended up working alongside of Will. He got elected the same year I did. He had his own set of concerns. It wasn't so much what mine were. But it's really is something. And at the funeral the other day, I know it was wonderful seeing you guys and other people that are connected here in the county. I've mentioned before, growing up here, you like to hang your hat on that. But when you go to an event like that, it really feels, for those people who just moved this county and said good things about the county and maybe a couple bad things, but one of the things, I think, the realization of how tight this community really is, to where it feels like a family, that's a big blessing. I mean, I feel sorry for other people that don't have that, to where when you go and you see people's faces at a funeral, it's comforting to see people's faces in this room, not just because we work together, but whatever, it just really felt like family. And Will kind of brought that to light for us, as he has many other things. So anyway, I could go on and I won't, but I just thought it would bear mentioning. I know y'all probably have thoughts too, but that was mine.
Rudolph?
Well, he'll be missed. I mean, he was a great person for the position. He was great for the community, and not just this community. He served all over the place.
Yeah.
Even in the jail, he did counseling in jail. Wherever people needed help, Will would make himself available. So, I appreciate that, and I learned a lot from Will. I learned a lot from everybody, because when I came on the board, one thing Mr. Bradley told me, he said, I want you to remember, you got one mouth and two ears. So you listen to what's going on before you speak. And that's what I've been trying to do a lot, is listen to the conversation, make sure I understand what's going on to the best of my ability, then I try to share. And I listen to Will a lot, and like I said, a lot of times we don't agree, but we were not disagreeable, so to speak.
Right.
And I appreciate him for all that I learned from him.
Renee?
So I wasn't able to go to the funeral because I was traveling for work on Monday, but I did go to the viewing, and I was struck by how many people were there. The cars were lined up on the road. I know people waited for a long time to get in and have an opportunity to speak to the family. Supervisor McCarty was a godly man, is a godly man, and a true community servant. Obviously, he'll be missed. He was a huge part of me feeling comfortable. Not that other people didn't help me feel comfortable on the board, but he really, really made himself available anytime to answer questions and, just to guide me through this first year of my 4-year term. He encouraged me to be a certified supervisor, if you will, and go through the class, and I completed that last year. And I know there's going to be a big void at VACO too. Obviously, the whole state's going to feel his loss, and I'm just honored to have had the chance to know him and be as close as I was to him for the period of time that he was around. For a man of the cloth to reach the pearly gates, and kiss the face of Jesus has got to be really special and something that you dream about forever. So, I'm going to be glad when it happens for me, but I know that Will's upstairs playing jokes on people and dancing with the children and telling lots of jokes.
Yeah, it's quite an honor. And you think about what we have in front of us and a new appointment, but you can never replace Will. He's irreplaceable. He was a unique individual, and we will appoint someone, and electorate will then decide as we go forward into the years ahead who will sit on this board, and we'll move on, we'll move off, and it will always interchange. But I will tell you, over the years, it's been a real blessing to me. Because it has been said in it, but it's very true. There is a lot of uniqueness in each person that's serving on this board. There are a lot of differences, and even though we show a strong mutual respect for one another, and I think that exists here, and then we also have become friends, but we are still very independent thinkers, and we approach things entirely differently, and that's what makes a good representation for our citizens. And I'm very thankful for the independent thinking that takes place here, that comes here, and the resources that every one of y'all bring to this table. I will deeply miss Will and his input and his kidding around, and he was just a very, very special individual. But he would want us to move forward, and we will move forward, and we'll be strong. And we'll ask the Lord to guide us in every step we take forward. And at the end of the day, he was, top-level servant. He may have been in a senior position, but he knew how to serve. Even when we were doing Publix and we were welcoming in the community and cutting the ribbon, he was meeting a few minutes later with the Southampton food pantry folks. And, oh, well, you guys got to come out to my church, and we want to be able to be a part of that. And over and over again, he had a history of participating with other folks. Even when he had his 25th celebration, which he asked me to speak at, and there he was, Don, I can't believe it. They won't let me do anything. I'm usually cooking. I'm usually serving. I'm usually giving out the food, and they won't let me do anything. He says, isn't it great, Will, that they can show appreciation and love for you? And but that was him. He got into so many committees and so many areas like the jail and so on. And I'm sure right now he's probably on the construction committee up there in heaven on that golden road, and the pearly gates and all that, trying, hey, get those beams set right over there, right? Because that's just who he is. He's serving in heaven with the Lord Jesus. So thankful for that. With that, we will adjourn for the evening.